Why I like optical illusions. Optical illusions are really nice tools to show you that the way your thought process, even your preconceptual thought process, is putting together the visual world, the visual experience, the scenery, is not how it actually is. And different optical illusions point out different aspects of how either our eyes or more likely our brain fill in contrast that isn't there, add shapes that aren't there, add movement that isn't there, or just alter what seems to be happening from one paradigm to another paradigm, which really helps you question which paradigm is real, if any. So the beauty of this is that it starts to show you that the seeming solidity, the dimensionality of what you're seeing when you look around right now, you gaze into your periphery, into the visual field, that what you're seeing may not be what you think you're seeing, and yet you're still seeing it. That's the key to this. That's what optical illusions show you. It's like you simultaneously see the illusion of dimension, shape, color, contrast, and so forth, and you also see that that is not accurate. That's not actually what's happening. Now, of course, with an optical illusion, it's using a certain like two-dimensional model of reality, often sometimes three-dimensional models, but it's using a very purposely constructed set of patterns, colors, shapes, and movement to demonstrate this. With non-dual realization, you actually see it moment to moment. This is one of those things that's very hard to get across, and why I try to come at it from different angles or make videos like this where I'm explaining non-duality in a different way. But the visual experience, which is the physical, what we call the physical world, the three-dimensional apparent physical world, non-duality is to see it's really not like that. For instance, when I look out at objects like a computer screen, a picture on the wall, a window, a lamp, the mental construct would say that's closer than that, right? The screen is closer than the wall behind it, or right, whatever. Non-duality shows us that it doesn't actually exist that way. There's no behind. Now, you can't understand that with a mental model because the mental models are based in, right, the concepts of there is no behind, or there, whatever. Those concepts are secondary to the underlying non-conceptual mental framework. So you're not going to understand the underlying or more foundational mental frameworks with a more superficial mental framework, right? So conceptually, this won't make sense, but it doesn't have to. In fact, if you try to make it make sense, you'll just spin your wheels endlessly. However, it can be realized. That's the crazy thing about this. And every level of realization that occurs, or every depth of realization, or let's just say every shift that occurs, or every awakening, people talk about this in so many different ways, but when the perceptual filters drop, each experience is clearer, is very obviously more clearly seen than the one before it. Again, it's something I can't convince you of conceptually, because the conceptual mind is a more superficial version of the whole illusion of dimensionality, time, and space. So yeah, there's no way I can like logically prove that to anybody. But what I can do, and I know this through experience, is I can show you how to discover it for yourself. And when you discover it to a person, everyone who's discovered this has said exactly the same thing. It's clearly more primary, more real than the illusory overlay of time, space, dimension, distance, position, and so forth. Isn't that a trip? So I say this part because endlessly there'll be people who are going to argue with what I say, or disagree, or try to understand it more, or ask me like logical questions about it to understand it better. All that's fine. Like, I get that that's just going to be some of the variations of human response to hearing something like I'm speaking about. Others are going to hear this and they know exactly what I'm talking about because the realization is clear for them. and then everything in between. But I say this really not to be elitist about insight or experience in any way. It's quite the opposite. I'm saying it to show you what could be holding you up and that you absolutely can experience this. There were caveats to the way I just said that, of course, if anyone gets caught up in the words, that there's no you experiencing it, and the experiential distance itself is kind of what goes away. But the point is that it can be realized. And when it is, it's seen that which is most real, that which is most unfiltered, that which is most unconditioned, is the most natural, the most obvious, the most effortless, the most clear. And it, in a sense, just transcends all these ideas we have about dimension, meaning space, time, position, separation, center, periphery. And that is actually linked in a way that, again, it's hard to see until the realization comes, but it's linked to a more superficial framework of evaluations and judgments that we might call meaning and purpose. So sometimes you'll hear people saying, like, everything is meaningless. Realization shows you it's all meaningless. There's no purpose. And that can feel so triggering, but it's only triggering to that really superficial part of ourselves that just wants to give everything some cognitive meaning, like a label, right? But when you directly realize the meaninglessness, you see why it's meaningless. It's meaningless because the whole value system of judgment, I like this, I don't like that, that's better, that's worse, I'm all applying to me, actually. A lot of this is an internalized experience too, like I'm better, I'm worse, I'm always looking for my position in the world and in relation to others. That's a very uncomfortable way to live. But almost everybody lives that way still. So it's really good news when you realize that whole judgment system, the value system, can actually collapse. And you see that, like, that was just a waste of time. It was just a waste of effort and energy to just endlessly think. It's all dissociative. When you arrive in where you never left, when this non-dual presence is so clear, it's so enjoyable, really. It's, again, it's the most natural, the most spontaneous, the most clear, the closest, the most thorough. There's no remainder, nothing left over, nothing is missed, nothing's out of contact. So it's thoroughly satisfying in that way. Not satisfying of a bunch of mental ideas of what I need or want. It's just intrinsically satisfying. Yeah. So we got from optical illusions to the intrinsically satisfying nature of non-dual realization. But that's just one more entry point, because I was noticing someone sent me a video of an optical illusion that was really cool. And it just hit me like, yeah, that's why we like these kinds of things. We like the kinds of things that actually challenge our perceptual filters, our perceptual fabrications. Of course we like that. Just like we like movies that have surprise endings and irony and paradox, because those challenge our cognitive structures, frameworks about reality. And anything that does that opens us a little bit more to the truth, to our true nature. And of course that feels good. And then, as in my book, as I described, the other shoe drops. Anytime you get a strong taste of reality, just know that there's probably going to be some repressed emotion that comes up, some shadow material that comes up. They just go hand in hand, and it's fine. So it can be a bit of a roller coaster feeling for a while. But just know that anything, whether it's an optical illusion, whether it's inquiry, whether it's meditation, whether it's tragedy, right? When it strikes, it will strike all of us, and that's an opportunity. It's a huge opportunity, right? Any kind of loss is a huge opportunity. Any of those moments can open us to this deeply mysterious, but also deeply satisfying truth of being, let's say, truth of our true nature, of the unbound, of the unborn. So truth is where you find it. Be open to that. Don't get narrow-minded about it has to be Buddhist, it has to be doctrine, it has to be Dzogchen, it has to be Zen, it has to be Soto, it has to be Rinzai, it has to be Neo-Advaita, it has to be Advaita Vedanta, it has to be in the scriptures, it has to be Christian. Don't get all caught up in that stuff. It's just too narrow. Look around you. Be open. Be vulnerable. Feel. Be willing to feel intensity sometimes. Feel things that surprise you. Be willing to look into your own psychological mechanisms that are causing you to filter things and to be comfortable in a narrow view of reality. And why? Look into that. It's trauma. All these things are all pathways to truth, including optical illusions.